Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Gasway. I'm principal at Midway High School. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to go ahead and get started. We may have a few more people join us, so as they do, just please know that we're trying to be respectful of your time and get you back to work, because many of you have taken your lunch hour, and we appreciate that. I'm going to introduce a few people to you right now, just so you know names and faces as we go throughout the meeting. Presenting with me is Dr. Herb Cox. He's the principal at Midway Middle School. We also have in the very back, we have Dr. Kazanis, our superintendent of schools. At the very front doors, as you were coming in, Dr. Merritt, our assistant superintendent of curriculum, was opening one door, and Mary Lou Laceman, our assistant superintendent of human resources, was opening another door. And somewhere in here is Dr. Jeannie Johnson, our executive. There she is at the back. And her position is Executive Director for Administrative Services. Presenting today with me is Mr. Adam Fine. He is our Executive Director of Technology. And then Ms. Susan Fletcher, sitting right here at the front, and her position is Director of Instructional Technology. As we go throughout today, you may have some questions that you want answered, and so hopefully you have received a index card that you can write those questions down, and then we're going to be periodically trying to get those from you and try to answer as many questions as possible. But some of you, like I mentioned before, your goal is to come hear the information, and you may not have any questions, and so you may need to sneak away to get back to work. But we do understand that some of you are definitely on a time constraint, so do not worry if you need to sneak out to go to lunch, or go back to work, sorry, and miss your lunch. So we're going to go ahead and get started and just talk about the iPad initiative. I am very excited. Go ahead, is it ready? I'm very excited. This is a project that we have been talking about for a couple of years, and it's something that our school board and our leadership team has been talking about for a couple of years. They are always looking for strategies to help achieve our district mission, our vision, and our campus goals. And this has been one that we felt like is really going to help our students get prepared to be 21st century learners and get them, as they go into college, that we're going to have them a leg up on other districts throughout the state and help them achieve at higher levels. And we're going to spend time today talking about a variety of things. But one of the things that I wanted to mention is it's a part of our vision statement, that we feel like that the iPads are directly tied to our vision statement. Midway ISD, in partnership with our community, provides a safe, pleasant, attractive, and technologically advanced environment. We feel like that this is going to give us just a real benefit by every day. Every student's going to have the equivalent of a computer sitting right at their desk, right in their hands, every single day. It's a part of our mission statement as a district, that the mission of Midway ISD is a district at the forefront of educating today's youth and leaders, is to maximize individual potential within a learner-centered environment to prepare citizens to excel in a global society. We feel like that this is going to give our kids some real tools in their tool belt to help them be successful. So not only do we feel like that this ties directly to our vision statement, our mission statement, but it is directly tied to every district plan, our district plan, and every single campus improvement plan. It is written that goal number 1, meet the academic, social, spiritual, and physical needs of a diverse student population. And we feel like this is going to help our students with their academic needs. And so right now, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cox, and he's going to share a little bit more.
Well, good afternoon. First of all, thank you so much for making the effort to be here on a cold, rainy afternoon. We appreciate very much your participation today. I'm going to just touch on a couple of quick basics about that. First of all, the purpose of this implementation is to provide a truly participatory and authentic learning environment that heightens our student engagement, advances academic growth, and intensifies the desire to learn. Along the way, we hope that our students, with this tool in their hand, will actually want to learn, will actually take more of an ownership of their own education. We also hope to be able to inspire students to create, innovate, communicate, collaborate, research, problem solve, and think critically. Each and every one of those skills, those are real-world 21st century skills. Just we talk a lot about 21st century learners. Those are 21st century skills. This is how the world acts and operates. We believe that this is going to allow us to prepare our students to participate in businesses the way that they act now. How will the iPad affect learning? Our teachers will be able to differentiate their delivery, their content, their assignments. They'll be able to increase engagement with their students through choice. They'll have access to current information. One of the things that they tell me is that this tool that I'm holding in my hand is more powerful than all the computers that were on board the lunar module that landed on the moon. We're going to put this in the hand of our students, and they will be basically free to have access to all of that information that's out there and is available to them. I'm kind of excited about that. We believe this is going to increase our students' discernment by examining and critiquing the information and media that our students see, hear, and read. It will also allow for formal and informal learning, which means that our students will no longer be constricted to the four walls of their classroom. They will be able to learn anytime, anywhere with this implement in their hand.
Dr. Cox and Strasway had talked about why we're doing it and our purpose. I want to share with you a little bit of what's going on nationally and what has happened. The first thing I want to talk about is Project RED, and RED stands for Revolutionizing Education. And it was the first large-scale survey or study that was done on technology and its impact and how well it was done and did it affect student achievement. This happened in 2010, and 997 school districts were surveyed, and it included 49 states and the District of Columbia, so it was very national in its scope. And they found several factors that in a one-to-one environment, it did make an impact. Things were properly implemented, and there were several key factors properly implemented, and it did make an impact in student achievement. And so, briefly, when we're looking at the key factors, I'm not going to read them all because there are 9 of them, but I wanted to group them for you. The key factors were one-to-one, which is what we're doing, improved the outcome, versus a 5-to-1, like 5 computers to 1 student or 5 devices to 1 student. A one-to-one improved the outcome. If it's used in all classrooms, not just the core classrooms, but any kind of intervention classrooms, all that made a difference if it was used globally in the school. The depth of the use, if it was used for collaboration, if it was used for virtual field trips, for research, all that had an impact on the outcome. Campus leadership plays a huge role. With the campus leadership understanding what it means to transform education using devices impacted the outcome. And then our teachers, of course, are vital to what we're doing, and giving them time to work together and providing professional development for them also impacted the schools that were very successful. So when you put those key factors in a one-to-one environment, the findings were very impressive, and just a few of those findings were they outperformed other schools. One-to-one, when things were properly implemented, outperformed other schools. It improved learning. The online collaboration that when kids are working together increased student engagement, and daily use delivers the best return of your investment. So now that we've kind of laid the foundation of why we're doing it and what's happened nationally and some research that's been done, I want to talk about who will receive an iPad. Our K-1 students will receive an iPad 2 device. Our pre-K students will receive, in a classroom, we're going to have a set of 5. Instead of a one-to-one for our pre-K kids, we're going to have a set of 5 for the classroom to use. Our grades 2 through 12 will have an iPad Air. So that's how we have laid it out, and our students in grades 7 through 12 will be able to take their devices home. So when is this going to start? That's always the big question, when? Well, next week. We're going to start with the high school, and you'll see the dates up on the screen.
All right.
Okay. These are all tentative. We know we're going to start Monday with the high school, and we want to roll through all the campuses by the end of February. That's a lot of students and a lot of devices, but we've got a plan we feel pretty good about. and we're excited about it, the campuses are excited, and so, but again, the days are tentative, other than this Monday for the high school. How does a student receive an iPad? Well, there's one thing that has to be done, is a parent needs to go to the MLink website, which we're going to talk about at the end, and they need to complete the online agreement. It takes about 5 minutes, it has some very basic information, and it also has the information for you as a parent about responsibilities, what the district's going to be doing, well, you know, some of our purposes that has already been shared. All that's on there, and then at the very end is the agreement that you just need to fill out and then submit it. That's all that you need to do as a parent. The student, if you're in grades 7 through 12, they need to have their student ID with them on the day they're going to get their iPad. So next week, if you're a high school student, that child needs to make sure they bring their ID every single day, because if we get to growing really pretty good and we get a little ahead of ourselves, we can do more students than we thought of a day, they might get it Tuesday versus maybe Wednesday. So they need to bring their ID every day next week. What else? Oh, the students are going to sign an agreement, but their agreement's going to be on paper, and they're going to sign it when they're given an iPad. So I know there's been some questions because the student agreement is out on the website. It's not electronic, it's just a paper copy when they receive the iPad. For students in grades 9 through 12, and if you've got a high school student, they need to verify their iTunes account before they receive their iPad. It will help expedite the process of them getting their iPad if they can do that before next Monday. I know we've had a lot of kids coming in to my staff this week, how do I do this, or I have a question about it. So if you've got any questions, have your student go to the library and talk with the instructional technologists so that they can help them out.
So I want to speak very briefly about some of the expectations for students, the staff, and the district. By the way, if you guys will start collecting questions, and someone can start assembling those, just pass them down to the ends. Somebody will come by and start collecting those so that you can, again, be respectful of your time. Student expectations. We want students to be ethical and responsible for the device and what the content is. They need to. We're going to help them with some responsibility and some ethical. You need to help them at home as well. They need to guard their personal information. Don't share it out, just like you would tell your student, your child, don't share that information on social media. They need to be protective of that information. They need to ask before they record individuals, groups, teachers, etc. Ask permission so that we're not having folks that are just reporting. They need to be responsible for the device. They need to sort of care, be careful with the device, etc. And I'm going off of my notes, not necessarily Susan. So, parent responsibilities. Help your child understand that the device is expensive. It's an instructional material. They need to take care with it just like they would with textbooks or any other instructional material. When they come to the school, we don't want them tearing stuff up. We want them to be cognizant and careful and responsible. Ensure that the child reports any issues to the campus as soon as possible. So if the device isn't working, it won't turn on, my wireless doesn't work, I can't connect to the internet, they need to report that so that we can take that device and replace it or repair it or get it back to them as soon as possible, because we want them in the classroom for instructional purposes. If a device is, parents are responsible for devices that are lost or stolen, broken or damaged. That is under Texas education law. It's code. The device counts as materials allotment. It's actually an instructional material. Parents are responsible for instructional materials that are handed out to students. The district has chosen, if you look at some of the FAQs on how we're going to handle some of those situations. One of the things that's been a big FAQ for me is, what are the costs? Well, the costs will be dependent upon what happens with the device. For instance, today, an iPad Air screen replacement is around $150. So that's, if the device is destroyed, it would be a total replacement cost, etc. And we can answer some of those questions. If a device is stolen, it's your responsibility to help file a police report. The SROs, will also help file police reports here at school if it's something that happens at school. If it happens outside of the school district, you guys need to go with that local jurisdiction. So if it happens in Waco, or if it happens in Speakleville, it would be the sheriff's department, etc. And then we would take that police report and follow through with our security resource officers, which are police officers for City of Hewitt and City of Woodway, to get those police reports to try to find the devices. It's also a parent's responsibility to make sure at the end of the semester, or when a student or child checks out of the school district, that the device is returned in good condition. Some of the district responsibilities: we will manage the apps for K-6. We have a mobile device manager that will actually allow us to push and pull apps out for students. Security profiles: we will manage the district security profiles, but it's important that the students do not remove those security profiles. And I'll elaborate later in just some FAQs on why we want that. But security profiles allow us to help students, if a device is lost or stolen, perhaps find that device through a subpoena if we needed to go that far with Apple. Internet filtering. So this was a big question that came up. Is the device going to be filtered at home? Yes. So we have a proxy service. All devices that go home have to connect to our proxy server in order to connect back to the internet. So it is Children's Internet Protected. That's the term, CIPA. It is filtered at home and it is filtered at school. 21st century digital citizenship is one of the things that we're going to help students learn. That's one of the big things that we want when they leave this environment, to make sure that they know what they're doing with 21st century learning skills. We'll provide protective cases. We'll have parent education events. And that's it. I think we're ready for questions. Oh, Emily, sorry. Susan's back there.
We've mentioned MLink a couple of times already, and MLink is a website that we've developed, and it's not just about the iPad, it's really about learning. And the byline on the website and with the logo says, "Where Midway connects to reimagine learning," because we want this whole initiative and whatever we do in the future to be about the learning and the students and not about the specific device. And so we created this website called MLink, and it has several different pieces to it. And one of the things that it has is it has different tabs. You know what? I wonder if we can go to that. The web address for it is emily.midwayisd.org, and you can also get to it from the Midway homepage. So it's easy. If you can't remember the URL address, you can just find the link on the homepage and go to it from there. What you'll find on the page is there are several categories as it goes across, and the first one is frequently asked questions. So if we've talked about something today and you're not sure or you weren't quite what we said, go check the FAQs, because we try to put the questions that we receive, the most common questions, we put them out there on the FAQs. So check that first, and if you still have a question, please feel free to contact me, contact Adam, your principal. We'll be glad to answer whatever questions we can. You'll also see on the website there's a rollout tab, and the rollout gives specific information to every campus. So it'll give you the dates, it'll give you what's required at that campus, and that kind of information. So if you've got a child at the high school and you have a child at Woodgate, then you can see the dates, the high school as well as Woodgate. Just go and look at the different campuses. There's also a parent tab, and the parent tab is where you're going to find the parent agreement that we've asked you to go and sign so that we can issue an iPad to your student. And there's also other information about parent responsibilities, and we're planning on putting other posts out there that deal with maybe how do I parent at home if the child has a device. There's also a student category, and that's what the student agreement is, and we'll be putting tips and things like that, things that will help our students. We have a place for 21st century learning, and this is a place where we're posting what's going on outside of Midway in 21st century learning and what's happening in other places, so that we can look beyond our walls to the global community. And then the spotlight category is one that I'm personally really excited about. This is where we spotlight our teachers and our students. What are they doing to reimagine their learning in the classroom? And so if you want to check out what's going on, we've already posted a lot of different things out there with the spotlights that we've already been doing, and we've posted some things related to 21st century learning. I hope you will check it out. So are we ready do we have questions?
Yes.
Okay. This is our first time knowing that doing this. Where did or what category was the textbook downloads funding coming from or listed as on the bond?
So I'll help answer that question. Part of those funds will come from the IMA funds that we receive for textbook materials allotment. There is not a specific line item in the bond for providing textbooks. Those funds always were and always will be coming from the IMA funds that we receive from the state. Will Midway have Apple certified IT on staff for any and all needs? Absolutely not. Apple will only certify IT staff for Apple within like the Apple stores. I can go to Apple and learn some things, and we will have staff on. In fact, we have staff on hand. We do our own repairs in probably 90% of the cases. The iPad Air is brand new, so we have not repaired an iPad Air yet. We've already looked at what they call the teardown. It doesn't look any more difficult than perhaps an iPad 2, and we think we can repair them. But we've already gotten some quotes from the company that's doing the cases for us and another company here locally. And as I told you earlier, the replacement cost per screen is about $150. What happens when an incident occurs on campus and the authorized adult didn't witness it directly? So what happens if John is shoved and there's an incident? You know, that's going to be a case-by-case basis. I can't answer every potential question with a response because every incident is going to be unique. So I will tell you, we've had one broken device in a year and a half at Spiegelville, and that was an accident and would not have been charged. Those cases will need to go up to perhaps campus SRO to help us as a school district to determine where we need to go. So each case will be individualized, if that makes sense. We have security cameras throughout the district. Students also help. Students come to the principals and come report information and laws like that. So.
This question is really similar.
If it's similar, you can skip it.
Yeah. It says, I have 3 children at MISD. Am I responsible for 50% of the iPad replacements and the dental loss? Again, I think we would look at case-by-case basis. You know, was it something that happened all in one incident? You know, again, it would be a case-by-case basis. Why can't the iPad be carried in a backpack during school hours? One of y'all want to address that?
Our recommendation, and really, you know, what we've told the teachers is that it is our strong recommendation that students take good care of it, and what we have heard from other districts is one of the easiest ways, especially at high school and middle school, for iPads to have their glass broken is to put it in a backpack where you've got the pressure of other large books. If you have seen our literature books, and then you shove it in between a literature and a math book, there's a good chance that it could break just by the pressure of those. The other thing is that we see that students sometimes are not very cautious with backpacks, that they'll run into the cafeteria, throw it on the table, and it just, our recommendation to the kids is do not put it in your backpack. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to put kids in a position where they take good care of the equipment that they're going to be carrying on a day-to-day basis. And so hopefully, if a student is just dead set that they want to carry it in the backpack, what I would recommend is that they have a separate one Some young ladies may want to get a big purse or something and carry it. We're not saying you absolutely cannot, but it is our strong recommendation based on other districts that we visited with, that backpacks are one of the easiest ways iPads get broken.
Question was, how will you protect the children from viewing and passing around pornography?
So technically, we have a filter that we have in place for everything that's done in the school district. So it would be no different than a student who's already in the school, an elementary or high school, middle school, intermediate, that's going to a lab. Everything is filtered because we're required to under federal law, but also it's the right thing to do, right? I mean, the devices that go home will also be filtered because they'll be reverse proxied into the district. So, one of the questions that came up, there was an LA Unified question where students were bypassing security. Can that happen? Absolutely it can happen. And that's a responsible use that we're going to help students understand that if they remove that security profile, which they can do, they will not be able to access any resources inside the school district at that point. We will then run a report periodically, once a week, once a day, probably once a day at first, that will show us all the devices, and then we'll say, Johnny, remove the security profile. We'll call Johnny down and say, Johnny, why don't you remove the security profile? You're trying to bypass the security. We have a very good plan in place. So we've looked at all of the other good implementations and bad implementations to try to make sure that we're going to protect your child. Does that absolutely, positively, 100% mean that they will never get to anything? I cannot promise that. Because a district that's owned by XYZ today could be purchased by another company next week, and XYZ may be unfiltered because it had some widgets on it, but tomorrow it could be a pornographic site. That happens. I'm going to use an example. WhiteHouse.com is a very inappropriate site. When that initially came out, there was a lot of people that were going to it because it was mislabeled. And this was many, many years ago, but same example. Just keep going then.
Do graduating seniors get to take the devices to college with them? No, the devices belong to the school district and they're on loan to the students while they're enrolled. Can students who are absent due to illness or school travel log in and be present by distance? If your child, 7 through 12, has their iPad at home with them, they can certainly get to resources. If you have Wi-Fi at home, they can certainly get to resources. We're encouraging our teachers to use Edmodo, which is a secure environment where they can post resources, they can post notes, they can post assignments, and kids can also send their assignments to the teachers that way. So, can a child do it from home? Yes, they can. School travel, at this time, students will not be taking their devices with them if they're going to an athletic event or a band or choir event. Is a credit card required for iTunes account? The iTunes accounts we're establishing for the students, we're setting up where a credit card is not required.
How can we force a parent to pay for damaged or lost iPad or iPads if they didn't want the iPads in their child's hands to begin with? Again, it falls under Texas Education Code. So if you look up Texas Education Code, it's a requirement that we charge for materials allotment. What happens if a parent refuses to pay for a lost, stolen item? Again, I can't possibly cover every individual incident. So those incidents will be looked at individually, and the district will take that up to the next level from the principal to the assistant superintendent. We'll take it up with the SROs, and we'll look at each case individually. We're not out to get any individual at all. It is about changing learning and teaching kids 21st century learning skills. So it is a strategic shift that this district has adopted that came from the Board of Trustees, and we're pushing that out to help students with 21st century learning. One of the questions was, why weren't parents offered to purchase the iPad themselves? It comes down really to the ownership of the device. It's classified as a materials allotment, and we do the same thing with textbooks. Could you go purchase it? Yes, but we then have no control over how we can deliver instructional applications to you or to your child, if that makes sense. So it is a much better, much more efficient for the school district and for you, for us to own the device as a materials than it would be for you to purchase it and then have to figure out how we're going to deploy the application to it.
Another question is, are the devices kept through the summer? At this point in time, we have not made a decision about what's going to happen in the summer. We're looking at districts who allow students to take them home and some who do not. And we're just going to see how this semester goes, and then we'll make a decision a little bit later in the spring. Can we get insurance?
Yes.
Yes, you can. I'll let Adam.
So I'll elaborate. So we're not colluding with any insurance providers. There are some individual insurance plans that will cover theft, loss, and iPads. You need to check with your insurance carrier in that case. If you go to our website, you can find a list of carriers that provide insurance for district-owned devices. One of the ones that has been the most popular that other school districts in Texas have used is GoCare. GoCare, we are not condoning any individual, but GoCare has taken the time to set up a special portal to offer Midway parents a discount for 1 full year with a $100 deductible. You can get insurance for $39. It is not theft. It is simply destruction. I dropped it in a pond of water. Irresponsibility is what I would say, or if the device was somehow broken because I threw my backpack down. For a $50 deductible, I think it's $45, and that link is on our website as well. It's gocare.com/MidwayIC. Again, no affiliation with Midway. We do not get anything from these companies. We listed all the insurance providers, but I suggest you check with your individual insurance carrier.
I'll mention on the website that information on the insurance is linked to the parent agreement. They're listed there as well as under the frequently asked questions. Kind of already addressed this a little bit, but there was another twist in this question. It says, will the campus give the students an iTunes account? Yes. And what email address should be used? We're using the email address, the Midway email address for each student. Every student in the district has an email address that's been created, so their iTunes account will be tied to their Midway email address. Can we include our students' iPad on our iTunes account? Primary reason is to be able to use the Find My iPhone app to find misplaced iPads. You can certainly put your personal iTunes account on your child's iPad, and there's nothing to prevent that. Do you want to address the Find My iPad?
So our mobile device manager allows us to find devices that are lost or stolen, as long as they haven't been put into what's called DFU mode. Apple is coming out with some additional security features very shortly. They're in beta. In fact, LA Unified School District is the first to get these, and it's because of all the debacles that they've had. They're going to prevent students from taking the profiles off. So we would prefer for students to leave the location services on with their iTunes account that's under the school district, so that in the event of a lost or stolen device, we can rapidly, using the mobile device manager, try to locate that device.
Why does the student need to verify their iTunes account? Apple requires it. I mean, they do. We don't really have a choice on that. Can siblings use the same iTunes account? No, and the reason is because depending upon what grade level, or even if you have children at the high school that are in different kinds of courses, the apps may be different. And so we can push and pull apps to students based upon their grade level, maybe what courses they're taking if they're in art versus ag. I was trying to put the course. Okay, file compatibility. If a student creates a file, such as Word, PowerPoint, etc., on a home computer, will it be compatible with the iPad?
So I'll answer that question. So one of the things that we did along with this deployment, and it's something that I've been presenting to the school board, the board of trustees for a number of years, is BEI. And I can attest to the fact that BEI works well for students in middle and high school and intermediate levels. We have some students who have been using it in a pilot last year. One of them happens to be here. I think he would say that it worked very well. He's shaking his head in the back. So what they will actually be able to do, those students will be able to use Word, PowerPoint, the actual application at home on a live desktop. So after we begin the deployment, we'll begin the deployment of virtual desktops, and we'll be able to provide additional access beyond just standard Apple. One of the questions that I had was, why Apple? And it's very important for parents to understand it's not about the device. However, when we met with parent groups, individuals, other school districts, and looked at the overall ecosystem, because Apple has such a long lead time on the application development store, it was important for us, because not every student has wireless at home, to be able to send instructional applications home with students that they could still continue their learning, even if they happen to be offline. So it was really that ecosystem of about a 4-year lead over everyone else, and because Apple owns it and you're in their box, it's not a fractured market. We looked at Android, we looked at Chromebooks, we looked at netbooks. The cost differential was too substantial for a notebook. Chromebooks weren't quite ready for prime time yet. And the Android market is very, very fractured. So if you own a particular device from Asus or Samsung or another developer, some apps that come out aren't necessarily available to you on the other device. So that's the reason we chose Apple. In our wireless handlet. So after the bond passed, part of the project of the one-to-one was to increase wireless. If you guys look behind you, there's 2 access points that have blue lights. I mean, you don't have to turn around, but we have dramatically increased the amount of wireless. We've done wireless surveys. We've got wireless survey tools that we purchased along with this to make sure that we're going to be able to handle it. If we have, for instance, a classroom that's having problems, we'll go address that. It's going to take some tweaking. I'll be the first one to tell you that no school district has done a one-to-one implementation without some tweaking. It's not going to be perfect the first day for wireless, but it's going to be pretty darn good. We're in a really good situation for wireless. Also, I should tell you, we've got wireless available. We have parents every day that drive up to our parking lots at night that leech off the district wireless. That's great. That's great, because if you don't have wireless available to you, you should be able to use it. It's a resource available to you. Currently today, we have cloud-based wireless access available at soccer, tennis, football, baseball, softball, and around the corner. And we're working, I've actually met with city officials, and I'm working right now with City of Woodway, City of Hewitt, to try to do something with the citywide wireless project. The problem is those are if you can imagine how expensive those are, it's incredible. In a perfect world, we would have that. And I'm doing what I can, but I cannot facilitate that for the cities. And so it's important, if you're a constituent in one of those cities, talk to your council folks and say, look, this would be great. Because it also benefits not just students, but it benefits others in your community as well. I should also say, for $15, you can get internet from Time Warner Cable. I've been working with Time Warner Cable to try to get that fee reduced. I do not have that in place yet, but I'm working on it. I don't know if that will come to fruition, but if it does, we will certainly notify parents. We're not advocating Time Warner Cable. It's just that Time Warner Cable happens to be our provider for internet. And they are trying to work a deal for district parents because they are our provider of internet. Personally, at home, I use Grande. I'm telling you my Time Warner rates. So they're all good.
All right, will this device be used for writing, or keyboards needed, or just research and information gathering? We hope the device will be used for many things, research included, but writing, yes, writing can occur. One of the things we're looking at providing is having keyboards that can be, no, I did not provide it. To provide keyboards that a teacher can check out and use in their classrooms, maybe like a classroom set if they're going to be doing some extensive writing that day, they could use that in their classroom.
When we have an example of a wired keyboard that's awesome. And there may be a question here about why we do or don't use Bluetooth. Bluetooth creates interference with the actual Wi-Fi 802.11b signaling. It creates problems. 1 or 2 is no big deal, but if you can imagine if you have 2,000, then guess what? It interferes with wireless. So that's why we're telling you in the FAQs, do not buy a Bluetooth keyboard, please.
Where will students leave iPads at during after-school activities, away games immediately after school? Who will be responsible for them? We have worked with our athletic department to ensure that there are locks on every locker. There are only 2 locker rooms that don't have lockers where they can lock, and we are actually providing those lockers with iPad carts that are no longer going to be used because the iPads that were in those carts are going to be at the elementary levels. And so we're going to make sure that every student has a lock on their locker. And the other thing is every student has a locker in the school. And so our recommendation to students is leave it in your either school locker, your athletic locker locked away, your fine arts, our fine arts department has locks. And so we want our students not to go out to their cars and put them in their cars because cars can be broken into. We've tried to make sure that we are prepared in our athletic areas that every locker is going to have a locker and that the student can put their iPad in and know that as long as they don't share their locker combination with anybody, that it's going to be there and it's going to be secure.
I'm just showing you an example of how easy it is for someone. This is not Susan's iPad, this is my iPad. So one of the things that we've also done to help with instruction is we've put Apple TVs in all teacher classrooms. So it's very easy for folks to AirPlay into those devices. So it's really cool to see instructionally or think about instructionally a student who has a great demonstration model they want to show the rest of the class. Guess what? They click a button, they connect up to the Apple TV, and now they're doing demonstrations themselves. So we talk about collaboration, communications, ubiquitousness. It's awesome where we are with the students today and what they're going to be able to accomplish. This was an offline app that I downloaded. It went on sale over Christmas. It was $10. It was an instructional app for Spanish, flashcards. It was $9.99 went on sale. I bought 10,000 copies because it was free. So now we have Spanish flashcards for everybody.
Mama needs that.
Will the iPad replace textbooks? It's not going to happen. I mean, one, we have a lot of textbooks still in the district, and they're not up for adoption or things like that. But as we move forward, we're not really sure what's going to happen in the environment with our publishers and what they're going to provide and things like that. But we'll tell you, if you've ever gone out on the internet and looked, there's a multitude of resources. And one of the ones that comes to my mind, first of all, is Khan Academy. Very good resource for instruction and learning that our teachers can use right now, whether they have a textbook or not, and our students can use it, and it's all free. And will there be time restraints on internet access?
No.
No.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to wrap this up. It's almost a quarter till. If you have questions that we have not answered, you can see any of the individuals in the back, Dr. Kazanis, Dr. Merrick, myself. There are going to be folks come down, talk to us. Feel free to communicate with us. I've got 2 quick questions. What type of case will be utilized? We're putting an out-of-box defender case on every iPad. And the expectation is for the students to keep that case on. That case is good. So, it's not Susan this time. But I demoed that to say that the device still works. And it's not 100% proof, okay? My cover's still there, but we chose this to try to help alleviate parents' concerns about the cost of the device, the replacement of the device, and the repair and continuation to make sure that the device has as long a life as possible. Again, this is a strategic shift in the way we're instructing students. Last question. iMessage capabilities. So we have the capacity through our mobile device manager to turn that off and on. We're leaving that on because that goes into our collaboration and communications from iMessaging to FaceTime. We've already done several demonstrations if you go to the Spotlight to look and see what we've done with FaceTime. It's pretty incredible what students can do. Dr. Kazanis, do you have any parting words?
I would love to.
Thank you.
Well, again, as I said before, thank you all for coming this jury afternoon. But as you can see, that a lot of work has gone into the implementation and the rollout of our iPad program. But more importantly, as we said, beyond the device, the whole procedures and processes and this reimagining what our classrooms are going to look like. And we're very, very excited about that. Certainly want to thank Adam and thank Susan. As you can see, they have a wealth of information, and there is nothing wrong. People that know me say, of course, I ask a lot of questions as well, and so please ask your questions. They certainly will get back to you as soon as they can, if you do that by phone or by email. But today, again, we'll kind of set up here, and also if you feel more comfortable, feel free to come up. If every question is important. We want to be sure that we do our best to answer that. I think Adam kind of alluded to this, but sometimes there are some circumstances or situations that we may not have the answer just yet, but we certainly are very reasonable in working through that and have looked at our peers and other school districts across Texas that have already implemented a one-to-one program in their school districts and learned from them and things like that. So we feel like we are very, very prepared, but also realize that this is a learning process for us as well, and we certainly are flexible and adaptable, and we'll work through that. So thank you all very much. Again, I want to thank Adam and Susan and the rest of the team. Thank